Aloha class, welcome. Let's start talking about John Adams, the second president of the United States, live from Arlington Heights. Okay, Adams, like Washington, big time federalist, okay? Big central government, didn't want the states in control. That's going to bite him in the butt later, okay? Now, because he is a big believer in the big government, he does a few things. Not too popular with the common folk. He opposes two different acts, the Alien and the Sedition Acts. So first act, the Alien Act. What this says is that in order to be a citizen of the United States, an immigrant coming in needs to have lived in the country for 14 years. It was originally 5. Not so popular among all of the immigrants coming in, okay? Now, also, this can deport any foreigner that they feel is dangerous to the government. Okay, Mr. Brady, isn't that unconstitutional? Why, yes, it is. We'll get to that in a second. Second act, the Sedition Act. It states that people may not criticize the government. They might face jail or deportation. Hey, Mr. Brady, isn't that unconstitutional too? Yes, it is. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, so here's what's going on here. Adams is kind of afraid. Okay, this is all aimed at quieting the Jeffersonian Republicans as well as foreigners from criticizing the government, who were primarily supported. They primarily supported Jeffersonian Republicans. Okay, so a lot of Southern plantation owners, the wealth basically, and a lot of Western farmers, right, where everyone was going. Now remember, Britain, coming from Britain, this is still a very fresh idea in a lot of people's minds. They wanted to get away from the cities. People were moving west. Okay, so a lot of bad things happening for Adams right off the bats. Okay, now if you guys remember from the whole experiment we did when we said all the parents are gone, no one is around except you guys said basically one thing. Okay, if it wasn't the human basic right to food, it was the human basic right to free speech. Okay, Sedition Act kind of takes that rule and breaks it in about 18 million different pieces. Let's move on. So now we get to the reaction of the Alien and Sedition Acts, because there is going to be reaction, big time reaction. So Virginia and Kentucky draft resolutions, and they're both written by Madison and Jefferson. Okay, Jefferson writes the Virginia, Madison writes the Kentucky one. They kind of help the farmers out, and their aim goal is to get rid of the Alien and Sedition Acts, and they do. Okay, now what this does, the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions get adopted by the government, and it says states have the power to determine if an act of Congress is unconstitutional. Big time clause in the Constitution, now called nullification. Okay, nullification is big time deal because now the states have some leverage, a check against the Constitution. Okay, Adams not out of the woods quite yet. Okay, has this whole affair called the XYZ affair. Right, now Adams, what he decides to do is that he needs to meet with France. Okay, now remember, we're moving westward, right? We just we're talking about, we just bought the Spanish land. Okay, after the Spanish land is French land. Okay, everything west of the Mississippi is French land. Okay, so Adams needs to meet with the French Prime Minister Talleyrand. Okay, but en route they are intercepted by men who call themselves X, Y, and Z. Okay, and they tell Adams and the government that they need $250,000 for the U.S. men to talk to Talleyrand. They're not getting to France unless they get $250,000. Kind of bogus, but it's okay. John Marshall, who was one of the U.S. men and later Supreme Court Justice, okay, he tells them, he's one of the men en route to France. He says, no, we are getting to France, and we don't negotiate with this, right? Our guy George Washington says, we don't do politics with other nations. France sees this as kind of a slap in the face, and there's a lot of tension, right? You can cut it with a knife. Now, most Federalists, okay, the ones in government right now, they want to go to war. But Adams, he's a smart guy, he thinks that it would harm the new nation and says no to war with France. Remember, still very fragile. We're only on our second president. Technically, we've only been a nation for, I don't know, just a few years, okay? So now, ultimately, Adams becomes very unpopular with his Federalist Party because he doesn't go to war. And he's going to lose the election of 1800 to Thomas Jefferson as a result. So, on to Thomas Jefferson. Shall we? There he is. Bada bing, bada boom. The man, the myth, the legend. Okay? So, in light of the XYZ affair, Thomas Jefferson kind of rides the coattails of John Adams, and he's like, okay, Adams had this big snafu with the French. How can I become insanely popular in just a matter of moments? Well, he buys land. Okay, April 30th, 1803. The United States pays $15 million for the land. Basically, think about the Mississippi and how it divides the entire continent. We buy everything in between that to, oh, I don't know, California for $15 million. That's only 4 cents an acre. Okay, even if you adjust that for inflation today, we barely paid just over $30 billion, which for our nation, that's doing pretty good. Okay. And the purchase added 828,000, there should be another zero in there, excuse me, another 828,000 square miles of land west of the Mississippi to the United States. I'll show you a map in just a moment. July 4th, the Louisiana Purchase is publicly announced. Boom! Let's keep moving west. Manifest destiny. Onward ho. Here's the land that we bought. For 4 cents an acre. That's insane. Okay? Just soak that in. Alright, so this is Thomas Jefferson's biggest moment. However, we kind of need to explore it, because what's out there? Ooh, Mr. Brady, is it Indians? Yes, it is. So, Thomas Jefferson enlists these two men, Lewis and Clark. Okay, Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. So he asked Congress for funds to explore the land west of the Mississippi. Alright, now remember, the government owns the land. They need to basically evaluate it, see how much they can sell it for, okay? That's going to come back later. Now, his goal is to find the water route to the Pacific. He knows, right? I mean, everyone knows that there is the Pacific Ocean somewhere. It's kind of what Columbus thought he was in, right? Yeah, big mistake. So in May 1804, okay, a year later, Meriwether Lewis and William Clark depart on the expedition. And here is their route, right? They leave St. Louis, and they go up and up and up and over. Okay, they basically explore all that area, and those states basically become from the Lewis and Clark journey. Okay, now they go up, and they know that Spanish territory is to the southwest of them, so they steer clear. So they go north and west, and they finally land in Oregon, and they find, right? They find the Pacific Ocean finally, not necessarily connected by water. Okay, they have to pick up their canoe and walk a few bits. Okay, but that is pretty much everything Adams and Jefferson. Okay, so we'll see you guys later in class. Thanks for stopping by.